and I'm quoting here, the transmission of tradition is the transmission of customs or beliefs from generation to generation. From the time of the Prophet, Qarn, that's what called Qarn in Islamic term. So you have the period of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then Khulafa Rashidun, then Sahaba, then Tabi'in, then Tabi'in, Tabi'in. So the transmission of customs or beliefs, and we will say knowledge, from generation to generation, effect of being passed in this way, effect of being passed in this way. So that transmission from generation to generation links us to the first generation. But in order to do that, we need to combine tradition with using the resources within tradition to do innovation or ijtihad and to change circumstances. Otherwise, we won't be able to actually link ourselves with the previous generation. So that's why we are neither traditionalists nor modernists. And let's give you an example of this. For example, Quran and Sunnah are there. Yeah, these are available texts for all the generations. And we understand them, so they can tell us according to our circumstances how we should act. Some circumstances obviously are always the same, then other circumstances they change vertically as well as horizontally. So Islamic disciplines provide the resources to follow, understand and follow Quran and Sunnah in these changes, horizontally and vertically. Now, traditionalists, for example, would say, and we are not traditionalists, for example, the Prophet ﷺ's day, there was no ilm al-tasrif. There's no ilm al-naf, so I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to try to understand Quran and Sunnah without naf and tasrif. So that guy is a traditionalist. Because obviously ilm al-tasrif and ilm al-naf weren't there in the time of the Prophet. We invented them. Hazrat Ali, Karamallahu wajhahu al-Kareem, for example, ilm al-naf and ilm al-tasrif. Imam Khalil and his predecessors. So traditionalists try to understand Quran and Sunnah without ilm al-sarf and nahw. And modernists will, for example, either reject Quran and Sunnah or will try to understand Quran and Sunnah according to his own new invented knowledges, which are not sanctioned by already existing traditions. So we are neither of them. What we say is that without ilm al-tasrif and change circumstances, when Islam spread to areas where, Arabic language was mixed with other languages and things, and the sense of Arabic which was available in the day of the Prophet was no longer possible, so we needed to systematize the understanding of the language. We needed to invent ilm al-tasrif and ilm al-nahw in order to understand the Quran and Sunnah. But we did invent this in order to follow the Prophet ﷺ. So if we hadn't invented these, it would have been impossible for us to follow the Prophet ﷺ in the changed circumstance. So traditionalists think that he is following the Prophet ﷺ, but he is not following because he is not doing these inventions, which are required to follow the Prophet ﷺ in the changed circumstance. And the modernists fail this because modernists doesn't want to follow anyway, want to invent things out of nothing. So that's the difference. So we are orthodox in this sense, that always following the Prophet ﷺ by combining legitimate traditions and innovation based on those traditions and changed circumstances. Because what we say is, if the Prophet ﷺ and his companions were present today, and they had faced these circumstances which we are faced, we think that they would have done this. They would have invented ilm al-tasrif. They would have invented ilm al-naf. And we know that because they did things after the Prophet ﷺ, which the Prophet ﷺ didn't do. They did this in the changed circumstances in order to follow the Prophet ﷺ. Like the things Abu Bakr Siddiq did, or things which Umar did, or things which Usman and Ali did, radiallahu anhum ajma'in. So this is the crux of the meaning of tradition. Okay, let's go back to the text. So we are the Orthodox Muslim. What does that mean? An Orthodox Muslim is someone who accepts the historical traditional interpretation of Islamic texts and events. That is, interpretation of Islamic texts and events based on historically and traditionally sanctioned Islamic disciplines like usul al-fiqh, like ilm al-tasrif, like ilm al-nahw, like ilm al-lugha, etc., etc. But this definition is not complete, so we'll continue with this. But this is enough for today.